Hi, Audrey.
Hello,
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. All right. So, yeah, I have Audrey the Ninja back, and I'm just kind of laughing because this is our second time doing this interview. I'm using a different platform to record the podcast, and it kind of helps if you know how to use it because I did not press record, and that's on me. So, this is a lesson in life. You got to
Mm,
be prepared. You got to know how to use your equipment, your tools, kind of like in dental hygiene.
mm-hmm.
So, speaking of dental hygiene, how's it going?
Good, good. We're graduated.
That
I'm
is
done.
amazing. That's
Yeah,
got to be like one of the best feelings in the world.
definitely one of the biggest reliefs. Um, Especially knowing that I can sleep peacefully and not have to worry about having a patient for the next day. Um, I have still had a couple of nightmares where I'm like, and I wake up and I'm like, I need a patient for Monday. I'm like, oh, wait, no, I'm done with school. I don't need a patient.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, definitely one of the biggest reliefs. Big
Yeah,
weight off my shoulder.
yeah, I'm really looking forward to that feeling. I have
Hmm.
people say all the time, they're like, oh, it's just 2 years. It'll go by so fast. And I'm like, I wish it would. But at the same time, I'm like, I need more time in the semester. I need time to get all my requirements in. So,
Yeah, yeah. 2 years seems like a lot, and then when you're in it, I feel like definitely the second year goes by the fastest. And but somehow you get all that experience and you're you're equipped for the world. Take on the world after that. But I think definitely a lot of more experience will come with clinical practice.
yeah, definitely. I follow a lot of well, not a lot. I just follow a Facebook group for dental hygiene students, and of course, people, even after they graduate for like a year or two, they'll still be in the group. And some people are like, "Oh my gosh, like I graduated a year ago and I still feel like I have no idea what I'm doing." And then I read the comments and people are like, that's normal, because you got to learn your office. And then, you know, I feel like in school would be a lot different than outside of school because in school you have a controlled environment where, at least probably more controlled than private practice where, you just, it's a free for all kind
Yeah.
of.
Whatever comes through the door.
Exactly, yeah. So it's not like you call your patients, like you have like your one patient, like no, you have, probably 6 to 8 patients that day. So, yeah. So I mean, speaking of working in an office and all that, now that you're graduated, are you working in an office?
I start on Monday. It's
Oh,
starting in a few days. Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. I had this lined up before I graduated.
Nice.
It's actually where I did my externship. It's a community health center, which is exactly where I wanted to work because that's
Mm-hmm.
where I learned dentistry and doing things for the community is what I wanted to do, and I'm just excited that it worked out in my favor to get this position. Um, and they're very accommodating to the schedule that I wanted and all of that. So I'm super excited to start on in a few days. I'm almost done with all my HR stuff, and so I'll be going in for orientation on Monday. I'll
Oh, cool.
get my picture taken for my badge, and it's kind of surreal thinking that like I'm gonna be like, "Hi, my name's Audrey. I'll be your hygienist today."
Oh, yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So now, the first time that we did this interview, you called it your unicorn office. So this
Hmm.
is your ideal,
My
like,
ideal.
once in a lifetime opportunity.
It checked all of my boxes. I
That's
feel like
amazing.
sometimes, at least talking to my classmates who have also, they're working in offices now. Um, they they had to do a little bit of compromising with
Mm.
like they have this and this, but they don't really have this, and so their list they didn't get to check all the boxes, um, like I did. Yeah, so
Well,
it's
that's really cool.
definitely a unicorn experience where it's like
Oh, yeah.
it's too good to be true. Yeah.
And so I'm pretty sure we said like in your very first interview, because this is your third interview with me. So you actually moved to be closer to your school, whereas I decided to commute.
Hmm.
And so I guess I'll just pretend like this is the first time we're talking about this. But so is this in your hometown?
It is not in my hometown. I did think about going back to the office where I was, um, but living uh, living on my own is very different, and it's definitely where I feel like I've blossomed and become my own person. Um, in the office where I was before, I was also working with my mom, and I love my mom. Um, but as much as I love her, I also wanted to be my own person and separate. Um, you know, they'd always people would be like, "Oh yeah, that's so and so's daughter," and you'd be like, "Oh, you're so and so's daughter," and then felt like I was having to live up to her expectations. And she's like
Hmm.
very well respected, and people, I feel like they put her in a they held her they hold her in a high regard. And so I felt like if I make a mistake or if I don't follow through with something, it's going to reflect badly on her. So I feel like this is where I get to be my own person because no one here knows me or knows my history. So I have to put myself out there and be like, this is me.
Yeah. No, I think that's great though, because I think part of that is like when you go to dental hygiene school, you want to, establish yourself in a career. And, maybe part of that is breaking free from expectations or, like you really have to advocate for yourself in many regards. And so, I think that's awesome that you are branching out on your own and, just making it for yourself.
Yeah, and definitely hygiene school had a big impact on me coming out of my shell and becoming my own person because I had to put myself out there to get my own patients. And um, I'm also not, or I used to not be as social as I am now. And so making small talk with patients was really tough. And I would become very repetitive with what I was asking, like, where are you from? Have you always lived here? Uh, what are you doing after the dentist? That kind of stuff. Very, very superficial things like
Right.
that. But now I am much more comfortable, um, especially when I've seen patients multiple times and be like, I'll remember something from our first conversation and be like, oh, how are your kids? Or how about that project you were working on? How is that going? That kind of thing. And so, um, building rapport um, with patients has also helped me to work on my social skills.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like I always need help with that because so I used to work at a bank a long time ago, and I just kind of felt like you talk with a customer for 2 minutes while you're processing their transaction. And so, hi, how are you today? Oh, that's cool. Oh, how about this weather? Like you were saying, just the same repetitive, but with dentistry, you get more time with your patient. And so you do have that time to establish a relationship or a rapport. And we're asking them personal questions like, so how often do you brush your teeth? Or, stuff like that.
Mhm.
So,
Have you
I
taken
think,
your medication today?
right, yeah. Like, I think part of it is just like using our critical thinking. And so we're getting out of that. Everything's the same, repetitive circle of conversation. Nice. All right. So, you've graduated now. So, looking back on your journey through dental hygiene school, what would you tell yourself? I think let's start with what would you tell yourself to the Audrey that was going into second year of dental hygiene school?
To the Audrey that was going in a second year, it's gonna go by super quick. It's not gonna drag on like the first year. Um, be ready to like really work on your clinical skills, get all that experience, and um, I feel like in our first year, I was getting very comfortable with like easy cleanings, like prophies and very light calculus.
Right.
Um, but working with patients that had more advanced perio and a lot more buildup, that not only like getting used to setting the cavitron at a higher level, but also um, like advanced fulcruming and that kind of thing to really work on my instrumentation skills. Um, and we had to practice our and film videos of our instrumentation, and we'll get critiqued on that. But
Oh,
even after we had to, even though we didn't have to submit videos anymore, I would still practice. Um, I would still practice the um, different strokes we had to do, and um, the using the different Gracies and the different universals and sickles. Because in our first year, we only really use like the 5-6 universal curette and
hmm,
then the anterior sickle, and that you can only do so much with that.
right.
And so you really have to try out these other instruments in your kit. And yeah, I feel like I had to come out of my comfort zone of just using the universal, and I fell in love with Gracie's. I love
Nice.
Gracie's now. Yeah, they definitely uh make the posterior teeth a lot easier to work with.
Yes, I believe it.
Hmm. Yeah. So, to the Audrey from starting second year, get ready to get out of your comfort zone.
Nice. And then, so my follow up to that question is, what would you tell Audrey, who is just entering dental hygiene school, who hasn't learned anything about dental hygiene at this point?
Mm, Audrey from 2 years ago, starting dental hygiene school. Also, get ready to get out of your comfort zone, but in a different way. um, like I said, I wasn't as social as I am now. And so, get ready to make connections and, keep those connections. I remember my mindset going in was I'm not here to make friends. I'm just here to, get, started on my career.
Yeah,
Get started on my career. And I feel like that's a mentality that a few of us had. And then the ones who had that mentality are the ones who ended up becoming friends.
oh, that's funny.
And so, yeah, I had this core group of girls that so my cohort was all girls.
Okay.
And so it's fascinating that we all got along. um, so yeah, 30 women, one class. And yeah, everybody kind of was able to find their core group of people. And I'm glad I did because we really supported each other. Um, in our first year studying together and keeping each other accountable, like sending quizlets and that kind of stuff, and that really helped me with like the exams and the quizzes that we had. And it also really like fortified our friendship. And when we're getting through all of that, it's kind of like trauma bonding. Really,
I
that's what it is.
completely agree.
It's like we're moving through this all together. And so we helped each other in our didactic courses and then also in clinic, um, by sharing patients and helping each other get the competencies we needed. And um, when we had a challenging patient in the sense where it was like tough to remove calculus, like we could just have a debrief after our clinic session and be like, this is what happened, or, what would you guys do, that kind of thing. And so to the Audrey from 2 years ago, make friends and keep them.
Nice. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Because I guess my thought was like dental hygiene school, like you got to take this seriously. Like you got to focus on the schoolwork. But I mean, yes, there's some value in having friends, but then they also help you with the schoolwork. So it's kind of like all in one, really. Like you can't
Mhm.
have one without the other.
Yeah, exactly. There's yeah, that trauma bonding. It's like you just know what everybody's going through because you're going through it together. And
Right.
you'll talk to your support system outside of school, and they just don't quite get it because they're not going through it like you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely feel that experience because I remember, like, basically through my whole journey, I have some wonderful people who are very supportive. But like you said, if you're not in dental hygiene, you don't understand. And so I have a lot of people that say to me, "Oh, you've got this." And I'm thinking, "Oh no, I don't." you know, I mean, like I appreciate the confidence, but
Mhm.
I mean, I'm expressing concern because I feel like I don't got this.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
All right, so I mean, because you did just graduate, you did just do board exams not that long ago. Tell me about your experience with all that.
Um, it's tough to say the least. Um, Especially because a lot of them I had to schedule on my own time, and there were some that were scheduled for me, like my restorative and my what's it called, anesthetic, my clinical board exam where we do the cleaning on a simulated patient,
Hmm.
and yeah, it was those three that were already scheduled for me, so I didn't have to worry about those. But my other ones, those were tough because I had to put them on a day that I would that I'm not in school, that I'm not in class, and I have to study for it outside of outside of school.
Yeah.
And so that kind of put a little pause on like social things on my
Hmm.
social life. Sometimes I would have to be a little bit more balanced, and because in second year you don't have as much exams that you're studying for, or at least at my school we didn't. It was more just like more days of clinical sessions.
Yeah.
And so, you come home exhausted after clinic, and then you just don't have the mental energy to study. You don't have the motivation to study. But then that deadline is coming up quick, and you're like, I have an exam in a few weeks. I need to start studying. Um, well, the app slash program that we used was Student RDH,
Hmm.
and that one was really nice the way it was set up. Um, there was one section that was specifically to study for local anesthetic, and then we had a separate one to study for the national board exam. And along with the one for the board exam, there was like this really thick, like, what's it called? A workbook.
Okay.
And it had these really nice big margins for me to write notes in. And it was pretty, like, it's not the kind of paper where it's going to smudge. So that was
Okay.
nice.
Nice.
um, and it really helps with the local anesthetic, like getting all those numbers down, and kind of like the pharmacology portion of it with the um, what's the called, like the percentages and
Oh yeah.
the different ratios that they give you, and some really good mnemonic devices to help you remember. Um, and it was a similar setup for the national board portion. There was like 17 sections. They give you like a pre-test and a post-test.
Hmm.
So taking that pre-test, some of those classes I hadn't taken in like over a year. Some of them were from my prerequisites. So it'd been more than a year, been probably like 2 to 3 years since I had taken nutrition. So, trying to remember all that information. And I had this schedule set up for myself about a month and a half before my actual exam day. And thinking back to it, I feel like at least for myself, shortening it from a month and a half to maybe 3 weeks might seem like cramming, but I felt like the stuff that I had learned at the beginning, I started to forget. And so then
Oh,
I'd have to
yeah.
go back to it and then I'd lose time studying on other things. And so I, looking back, I would have shortened it to maybe 3 to 4 weeks instead of like a whole month and a half. I know some of my classmates were saying like 3 months before, some 4, some are
I
crazy
had
enough.
someone today, so I'm in my third semester, and she was telling me you should start studying now. And I'm like, they're like, it's over a year until I take the board exams. So I was like a little bit like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know.
Hmm.
Because I still have so much to learn.
Hmm. Yeah, I would. Yeah, probably wait a little bit. Yeah, I would say at the most 3 months before, and that's kind of to
Okay.
remember everything from the very beginning. And so, yeah, student RDH was really good at setting that up with the pretest. And then while you're doing each unit, they have little quizzes for you to do. And same thing, those videos and mnemonic devices help to remember the information. And then they have a mock test, like a full mock exam with the multiple choice questions and the case studies.
Hmm.
And then they have some that are just the case studies. And I feel like those were really helpful in the way that the questions are formatted on the actual exam because they're confusing.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I think I said this the first time we did the interview that like I I don't know how like being a native English speaker, this test, the way it's worded is strange. Like we don't
Hmm.
talk like that. We don't use those words often. So for someone whose uh, first language isn't English, this is a pretty tough test. Not just because not the content itself, but the way it's structured, the way it's worded is very confusing. So
Right.
yeah, I wish that's something that they would work on. And at the end of the exam, they have you fill out a little survey. And I just remember saying, number one, this is the worst test. I hope I never have to take this again. Number two, please word your questions differently because it's very confusing. And I remember walking into that exam feeling about maybe like 80% prepared because I remember the last few days before the exam, I was like, I'm not studying because if I don't know it now, like I'm not gonna learn it in the next couple days. I'm just like my brain is at its max right now.
Yeah.
So, and I just need to relax. And so I went in about 80% and I came out feeling like I don't know how that went. And pretty sure I failed because there were quite a few questions that they're worded strangely and I just do not remember learning any of that. I was like,
Hmm.
when did we ever cover that? Was I'm pretty sure I had 100% attendance and I do not remember that.
Yeah.
um yeah, there was, but they also have a lot of questions they throw away. That they're like the throwaway questions, the experimental questions that they don't really grade
Oh, interesting.
with the exam. So they call them like pilot questions or something. So it's like if a lot of people miss this, it's a throwaway question. They throw it
Oh.
out and it's not part of the average.
And do you get to find out what questions those are?
No, unfortunately. That would be nice.
Darn.
But there's a few different versions of the test. I feel like there's at least 6 different versions. Um, and when I finished my exam, I felt like there were quite a few topics that they kind of focused on. Like for example, pharmacology, um, I don't know, head and neck, and then like dental materials, for example. And then
Hmm.
I had other classmates that were like, oh no, I had a bunch of questions about pharmacology and a bunch of questions about um, radiology and, totally different things that it was kind of more focused on. So there's quite a few different versions of the exam. So you can't really compare, like, what'd you say on this question? Well, I don't know because we didn't have the same questions. So yeah. And then talking among with my classmates, we kind of all felt the same way afterwards. We're like, that did not go well. We don't know how that felt. Like we didn't know how to feel about it. And a lot of us took, I think there was about 11 or 12 of us who took the exam on the same day. And then we all got our results on the same day. And then you just hear like people screaming all over the clinic after the clinic session's over because they got their results. And that day, it was, I remember that day very clearly when I got my results. It was my private practice day in
Okay.
clinic. So we had it was this clinic session where instead of seeing one patient in a clinic session, we saw two in the morning and two in the afternoon. And it was kind of to simulate private practice where we could go through with a lot of the steps without having to get a check off or having the
Hmm.
instructor come in a little later. Um, and we kind of just did the flow of an appointment as if we were in private practice. And so I had both of my mom and dad, my patients there. Um, and we went to lunch, and then they heard everybody screaming and crying, toy, tears of joy, tears of
That's
joy.
good.
um, and they're like, Audrey, you got your results. We got to check. And so I was too nervous to open it. And so I had my mom do it. And then she's like, she starts crying. And I'm
And you're
like,
like,
is it
what?
good or is
What?
it bad? Is it good or bad? And then I see the word pass. And I'm like, ah, and then I start to cry.
Of course. Yeah.
And so it's just like, because I had to wait about 3 weeks for my results.
That's a long time.
It is a long time. Because some of the other exams, it was like an immediate pass or fail. Like they'll tell you right there. But, leaving that national board exam, you're like, I have no clue how that went. um, and then, yeah, it had to wait. And so then there's all this anticipation and anxiety building up. You're like, no, I'm sure I passed. I'm sure I passed. And you're like, I don't think I passed. I don't think I passed. And so then, having that relief of it's gone. I don't have to take it anymore. I don't have to take it again. I don't have to take it ever again.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it was worth the money.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
goodness.
So that was my experience with board exams.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite the journey. But like, so what I'm thinking of is, so you just took this board exam that, basically decides the rest of your life, it feels like, and you still have to go to school and do the homework and see the patients in clinic and not knowing.
Mhm.
So, like, did you sleep during that 3 weeks while you were waiting? Like,
Barely. um, Leading up to the exam, I was like super focused on studying, and I had other events going on in my life, and so I had to schedule my studying around that too. And some things I had to say no to. I'm like, no, I gotta study. I gotta study. Sorry. I mean, we can hang out, but I'm gonna bring my books to study.
yeah.
um, we can hang out in the same cafe, but I'm not gonna be talking to you. I'm gonna be studying. um, and then afterwards, I'm like, after I'm done with all that studying, I'm like, what do I do with my time now? What am I supposed to be
Hmm.
doing? uh, and So it was a lot of social media because I had deleted social media so I could focus. And so after that, I was just scrolling on TikTok and I'm like, I don't know what else to do.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely had times in my life where, you have something that takes up so much of your time. And then when it's done, you're like, I don't know how to human.
Mhm.
I don't know what I do. I don't do anything for fun. How do I, yeah, like you're just like, I don't know how to handle this.
Yeah. I don't remember what I did before.
It's like, do I still do anything for fun? I don't know. It's been too long.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's really exciting. Um, so I guess like looking back on hygiene school, what would you say like the best part of it is and the worst part of it is?
Mm. We'll start with the negative
Okay,
and then we'll end with positive.
good, good.
The negative, the worst part about hygiene school is hmm, I feel like sometimes there was a lot of unnecessary stress on my part.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was stressing out way too much about, not passing and focusing on the negative of like, oh, I don't feel confident in this. I don't think I'm going to pass this competency. But that kind of negative mindset sometimes you think too much about yourself.
Right.
And you're kind of like critiquing yourself before you have someone who has a lot of experience, like your professors, come and look at what you're doing, and then they say, "Oh, it's looking good." And you're like, "Is it looking good? Am I doing? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Because it doesn't. I don't really know." Um, yeah. Worst thing is like the overthinking that you do, and also board exams.
Hmm.
That's the worst part. Um, but the best part about hygiene school was the connections that I made, the connections not only with my peers, but also with the patients that I saw, um, monitoring their progress, um, and being able to give them recommendations and give them commendation on what they're doing well, because everybody needs a little bit more positive reinforcement on their behaviors, on their routines. Like, yeah, it looks like you're doing good. Looks like you're doing better. We're focusing on that area that we talked about last time. And the connections that I made with my classmates definitely, uh, that's probably one of the more positive things, I think, because, we've bonded over our trauma.
Right.
And we really helped each other get through hygiene school. And shout out to my friend Claudia, because without her, I wouldn't have made it. She was probably one of the biggest supporters, not only for me, but probably for our whole class, because she had this supply, this wealth, this abundance of patients that had treatment that they needed, cleanings as well as restorative. And so, yeah, I couldn't have done it without her.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, thank you so much for sharing about your journey so far. I mean, hygiene school was one thing, but now you begin the next chapter, which is real life, like working in an actual dental office, and yeah, RDH at the end of your name now. So, I
Yeah,
mean, that's pretty exciting.
it is. And
It- And
the first time we did this interview, my license was not active yet, but it is
oh,
now.
that's awesome. Yeah.
She
So,
she can legally practice.
so okay, this is interesting then. So, how long was it from when you did your board exams and graduation? I know the timeline's different for those to when you actually got your license instated.
Um, It was, let's see, I finished my last board exam the day after graduation. Um, and so when you fill out the paperwork for, at least for this state, you they kind of want you to have everything already done before you submit the application.
Hmm.
And so that's what I did. I waited. Some people submitted a little bit early and then they like submitted, it's not like it's kind of like an addendum kind of thing to like add the rest of the information into the application. So some people got theirs a little bit earlier than the rest of us. And I think I submitted mine a couple days after. Yeah, a couple days after I took that last exam. So that was like June 16th or 17th. And then it isn't until now. So it's probably been like over a month and a half,
Okay.
probably a month and a half since I submitted it. And a lot of my classmates, they actually got it um, pretty quick after we graduated, like a few a few weeks
Oh,
after
wow.
submitting the application. And then I didn't get mine until now,
Yeah.
even though we all submitted it around the same time. So it's kind of just however it goes through the Department of Health. Um, and especially in this time of year, a lot of people are graduating. And so they have to go through a lot of paperwork, not just for dental hygiene, but for all of the health professions who
Oh,
are
okay.
have graduated. So a lot we were advised to be calling up every day and be like, "Hey, how's it going? What's the status?" Uh, and some people got theirs. They get it through quicker so that you stop calling.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So, and I guess in this month and a half that you're not working and you're done with school, like, did you do anything to celebrate or just, just enjoy the fact that you're done hygiene school?
Lots of celebration.
Good.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I did a few things with my friends, going out to dinner, and just a lot of the social things that I had to give up while I was studying, and lots of dancing because I love to dance.
That's awesome. Actually, yeah, now that you say that, I think we talked about that the first time we did this interview. Um, I think I said something like, what do you do to kind of balance out the pressures of hygiene school? Because you don't want to be just hygiene school 24/7.
Hmm. Yeah, um, a balance is definitely necessary. And I remember at the beginning, they kind of pressured us or kind of scared us into thinking, like, you can't have a social life if you're in hygiene school. Say goodbye to your friends and family. You're not going to see them for the next 2 years. Um, I took that with a grain of salt. Because I personally love to dance. And I also really love live music. So concerts are a big thing in
Yeah,
my agenda. So, you know, obviously I would focus on school, but I didn't let it overpower because I definitely had some classmates that kind of let it run their life, and it's not a good time.
yeah.
You definitely need the balance. So you prioritize school, but you always want to have a little bit of recreational time as well.
I know for me, before I found out I was getting back into school, there's a concert that I wanted to go to in August, and I'm like, hmm. Like I requested the time off work if I was still working. And I'm like, okay, I got that off, but I don't know what my school schedule is going to be like. And I'm like, I guess I'm just going to gamble and see what happens. And of course, or did I say this concert was on a Monday? It was on a Sunday night.
Mm,
And so I was like, well, that'll be fine if I get the day off work. I mean, worst case scenario, I'll have clinic 8 a.m. on Monday. But what are the chances of that going to happen? Guess what? I have clinic Monday mornings at 8 a.m.
mm,
So I'll be staying, the concert's actually not too far from my school. So um, we'll just get like a hotel and stay there. And then that way I don't have to travel so far to get to school in the morning.
Mhm.
And hopefully I won't be too tired the next day.
Alright, from someone who would go to concerts on a school night,
On a school night.
on a school night, um, yeah, it's tough, but you get through it.
Yeah.
Red Bull, that's what helped me. Not sponsored.
Not sponsored. For me, it was, I used to drink Celsius.
Oh, yeah.
Those were great, but I'm pretty sure I got like 3 cavities because of it.
Mm,
So I
yeah,
stopped drinking them.
heart palpitations, it's sometimes you're like, maybe I shouldn't be feeling this way."
Oh, yeah. So balance is everything, though.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've been finding for me, sleep has been pretty important. And I know I can't always get sleep, but when I can, like, school is very manageable when I get my sleep. But I'm also kind of in a unique situation where I'm taking classes, but they're not for a grade. So I take the quizzes and exams, but I don't study for them because I already know the stuff. So
Mhm.
I just kind of like show up, do the quizzes, cool, I passed. Like, yeah, it's kind of what I expected, you know. But I just know for me next semester, it's going to be a whole different ball game because like it'll be new material for me. I won't know this stuff already. So
Mhm.
sleep will be a luxury.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Awesome. Okay, I will end it for real this time. I think I've done that like 3 times now, but anyway, thank you so much for being on the show. Um, hopefully, I'll have you back here, and I don't know, we won't say a amount of time. We'll just see when you get settled in your new job and kind of get a feel of what it's like working in private practice, or I guess you're a community health, so that's even a little bit different.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, kind of share the differences of what it's like being in the real world compared to dental hygiene school. Because I mean, I've heard things, but it'd be nice
It
to hear from someone firsthand.
yeah, yeah. Alright. Thank you for having me.
You're
It's always
welcome.
great.
We'll see you back here in some amount of time.
Mhm.
Awesome. Thank you.